You know that feeling, Starbeam, when your body starts speaking to you? Or maybe it feels more like it's screaming at you. Your hands begin to shake, you get that pit in your stomach, and feel the ache to verbalize the words that are rising within you. And at the same time, you want to run in the complete opposite direction, pretending you have no idea what your soul is really asking of you. Yes, those visceral body reactions can be so unsettling, can't they? I know they can be, and that is why I'm walking you through my own intimate journey of staying with and honoring my body through these visceral reactions. I know it can feel so lonely, like you're the only one who ever feels this way, or the only one whose body ever does this thing. But today, I'm here to lift the veil and say you are not alone. Let's walk this road together, shall we? Welcome to the Devoted Way podcast, all about magic and miracles with me, Sora Schilling. It's time to hone in on your intuition, become artful, respectful, and nuanced with your relationship with energy, and live life based on your design. Your unique blueprint encoded with stardust from the ethereal realm and blood from those that have come before you. You know what to do and how to be, so trust in yourself. So, I wonder if those of you that are listening ever have this experience where you're, let's say, for example, in a group. Usually this happens in a group. You're in a group, and all of a sudden you have this visceral physical reaction that makes you feel very uncomfortable, and yet everything in you knows it means that you are to speak up and out whatever it is that's coming through. It could be a question, or it could be some sort of comment or reflection, and your body is doing this thing that your nervous system is probably a little bit in panic mode, right? And much of the time, you'll try to push it down, or you'll find yourself doing the thing and speaking it out loud, but you're still a bit startled by the whole experience. So I share this because I know that community members feel this, but I also have had this experience so often, right? And so let me tell you a little bit about that and what it is that I would do and how I've now come to embrace the experience. I say that specifically, not that I've cleared it completely, but I embrace what's actually happening in my body. Okay, so for those of you who do not know, when I was very, very young, I believe I was in maybe second grade, I had a very, very dear friend that I would go stay with because my parents were working all the time. They were immigrants, and so they worked their butts off. And she was going through something probably very challenging in her own family. So I'm going to put a little caveat here for those of you that are listening that there's something here that has to do with a little bit of trauma. So go ahead, and if you need to, you can pause or fast forward. Okay. So I had this experience with my dear friend, and she started to bully me, and she would say really, really mean things. And then there came a time where she became a bit physical. And so my internal self started to feel very nervous around speaking anything. Okay, so that happened when I was younger, and then I moved on into my adulthood. But the thing that caught me as an adult was anytime I felt this need or desire to speak something out loud that had to do with my own personal opinion or an ask or a question, basically anything, my entire body would go through the shaking motion, and my throat would shake, and then my voice as I would speak would shake. Right. So my entire nervous system was in panic mode. And so I started to wonder if I was ever going to get through this, because I actually really loved public speaking and I loved being in groups and doing all of those things. But this was preventing me from actually showing up and enjoying myself or being open to settling into the experience. And so here is what I've come to know, which is that one, if any sort of body experience happens, right, one, acknowledge. So rather than push it down, or rather bypassing it and just blurting it out, or trying to do everything you can to dismiss it, to honor. You don't even need to pause in it, right? But just honor. Just say, thank you, body. Body, you are telling me something. I feel you. I am witnessing you. I can see you. And it could be excitement, right? I can feel your excitement around the wanting to say something, or wow, I can really feel the feeling and desire to speak up, but also this feeling of, are you safe to do so? I'm going to give you a little loving hug, right? So really acknowledging your body. And then it depends on what kind of your environment you're in. And so I'll say this for a lot of different experiences, but the most healing way for me to have moved through and recognize this is to be able to be in a space that was sacred enough that those that were with me, I could share why I was going through what I was going through. Right. So to be like, listen, everyone, I would love to be part of this conversation. And everything in me is having a little bit of a moment. And so I'd like to pause for a moment and just acknowledge that and very courageously see if I can actually voice the thing I want to voice. May I have that love and support? I don't need rescuing. I don't need anything, but just you need to know what's about to happen or what's happening. And then the group being like, yes, great. We honor that. Absolutely. And so to find those kind of spaces, right, whether it's through the devoted community or other spaces, to find a circle where you can exercise this muscle, not exercise the reliving of the experience. I don't have to like go through exactly why and rehash anything. It's not about my younger self anymore. It's about my body remembering a memory that I don't actually mentally have an attachment to, but my body on a cellular level still sometimes has a little activation around it. So once being in a group, being able to do that, I started to be able to share. I'd ask a question that would be a really neutral question, but with sobbing, right? Be like, well, what do you think is the next step? And I'm still crying for no reason except that it's my body's reaction, right? Or sometimes I'd be like, you know what? I have a particular reflection for you. And I would show up with the shakes, but powerfully be able to present the reflection, right? So my colleagues or my dear friends or coven members could feel it, but everything in me is still shaking. Like they could see my hands shaking, right? And therefore it was okay because they could see my body shaking, but that wasn't me. That wasn't what they were focused on. What they were focused on was my words, my energy, my presence, my deepest intent, right? And so that helped supported my body to begin to self-regulate itself. And so now I come to this realization where much of the time that kind of experience doesn't happen. But when it does, it's a sure tell sign that my body does not feel safe and I need to verbalize it. So, for example, the other day I had a conversation with someone who's part of a group experience that I'm in, and she is one of the space holders. And this is the first time that we were meeting one-on-one together, and I was so excited. And she went immediately into some logistics and how I need to do some things, and certain things haven't gotten done. And I started to have this panic because it felt as if energetically she was yelling at me and telling me all the things I didn't do and the things I did wrong. She wasn't verbalizing it, but the energy behind it was very jolting in my system. And so I started to shake and cry. And so in my adult sovereignness, though, I said, could we pause? My expectation of this conversation was that we were coming together heart to heart and get to know one another first. To me, based on my lived experience, it's very important that I could feel the presence of my mentor first before we go into anything logistical, because I believed that today's call was about spiritual counseling, not checking off boxes. And so I'm having a reaction, and therefore that's why I'm having tears. So I said it very beautifully, but in the middle of hiccups and sobs. And that was okay, right? But I was able to voice why I was feeling what I was feeling. And so by doing so, we said, okay, we're going to stop. We're going to take a step back. We're going to breathe. We dropped in, we cleared. She burned some incense, and we started again. And by doing so, I was able to calm my system because I was able to voice why. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have spaces to begin to unravel why my body was doing what it was doing. So, for folks, if you feel that your body does something, right, in the midst of community, please don't feel the need to like immediately go into the thing that has created it, right? But instead, to go ahead and open up to spaces where you can settle in. You can simply enjoy, even if that means to take a seat and lean in or lean back while you're witnessing, and then slowly invite yourself into the conversation and go ahead and just share what your body is doing rather than the explanation of why before you start sharing. Because ultimately, once you start saying, my body is doing this, my body is shaking, my heart is in my stomach, I feel the tears, my voice is trembling. If you can acknowledge and voice out loud what your body's doing, your body begins to settle. And then share what you need to. By doing so, at some point, your unconscious will be willing to shift why your body started to do that, right? But again, that may take either sometimes some great work with a therapist, specifically around a traumatic event, or it may be just a little story that does not have to do with a capital T trauma, but just something that occurred that still stayed in your system that a coach might be able to support you with. And having a group of loved ones that are there supporting you in the experience just makes it even that much more richer. So that's what I would say when it comes to your body reacting. And ultimately, at the end, majority of the time now, it doesn't happen. But I would never say that anything is, I am healed, meaning none of this affects me from the standpoint of me as an adult. But there will be times now and still in the future, my body will react in certain ways. And so I get to calm my body down, but also acknowledge my body is telling me something. It is the first messenger of danger that I should simply be aware of. Whether it's actually real or not, my body's saying something is off. And as long as I address that, then we can come to a place of harmony within myself. So I hope that helps for those of you that feel your body sometimes taking over. It is a blessing to serve you. My deepest desire is to bring nourishment to your soul, activate and enliven your inner landscape, and find inspiration through the sacred stories of others and myself, so we remember we are collectively woven. If you would like to learn more about mysticism, spiritual devotion, magic and intuition, sacred leadership, business practices, and devoted energy coaching, please make sure you subscribe to Devoted Way Podcast. As I continue to serve, may I humbly ask for a sacred exchange. I would be so appreciative if you would write a love note, otherwise known as a review. Share the episode with your friends and community members, and engage with me on Instagram at Devoted Way. If you have any questions you desire to be answered on Devoted Way Podcast, please head over to devotedway.com and send me an email. Stay sacred and discover your path and join the Devoted Way. May magic and miracles occur in your life every day as you co-create a synchronistic new world with the Great Mother. Until next time, this is Sora Schilling.